Hey there, I'm Alex Kluge from Toronto Home Experts, and I'm here to dive into the November 2020 Toronto real estate market update. What's happening in the marketplace today? Well, we're looking at what's happening for the month of November, and we're going to talk about not only what's happening with Toronto condos, because that's getting a lot of media these days, but also the freehold market, like what's happening with detached and semi-detached market and the townhouse market, and how does that all fit in the big picture? Let's jump right in. So when we talk about sales activity, we're up to no surprise, 24% from where we were last year. Why is that not a surprise? Well, last year was a normal, or what I would call a traditional real estate market, and this was far from a traditional real estate market. The stats really, I mean, I don't know if this comes as a surprise to anyone, but we didn't have a spring market. It was all pushed back. It was all delayed, and we saw really a condensed market from, call it, June to November. So everything is really condensed into those months. Whereas traditionally we see kind of peaks in the spring, a little bit of a lull in the summertime, again another peak in the fall, and a lull in winter. But everything was really just smack condensed. And so here we're not really comparing apples to apples. So yes, it's not a surprise we have increased volume. But what is surprising is actually we've surpassed already sales volume for 2019. If you were to ask me in April, like, Alex, would we have surpassed sales volume this year compared to last year in April? I would have said, no way. Now I'm shocked that we're here. I mean, not obviously that I'm in the market and doing it on a daily basis, but looking back, this was an incredible year from sales volume perspective, and it was so condensed over such a short period of time. So we expect December to show similar results compared to November when it comes to volumes. But what will be interesting to be is like early next year, like what's going to happen in February, because that'll be sort of our little foreshadowing, if you will, for what's happening in the spring market. Active listings. So again, not a surprise that they're up. They're up 15%, but the gap of volume to listings has shrunk. So again, that points to a seller's market, but we're going to dive into those numbers a little bit more closely. But it's not really a surprise that we've seen that. But what I do find particularly interesting is, one stat that we do like to follow is the absorption rate. So like, what is the absorption of listings happening in the market? So condos, downtown condos, so like 416, like south of Bloor, like Young Quarter down to the lake. So what we saw last month is actually the absorption rate. So the absorption of sales relative to listings actually increased last month. So is that the sign that we're seeing sort of a leveling out of the condo market? I don't know. Hard to say. It's too early, but it's a positive indication. So something that we're going to keep tabs on, and we're going to certainly monitor as we move forward. But good to see that indication, sort of where we were, earlier in the fall compared to where we are now. Okay, so new listings, again, not a surprise, but we're up 33%. So like, when you see in the media, active listings up 33%, it's not entirely a surprise because of, as I talked about just earlier, the condensing of the market. So we're seeing everything really being, pushed through later than we normally would. So, but yeah, it's incredibly healthy. We're seeing a lot of unusual volume at this time of year. And again, this is all sort of, sort of initiated, if you will, by the pandemic. There's been sort of real movement for homeowners to think about, okay, well, where do I want to be because of this pandemic? So do I want more space? Do I want to move outside the core? Do I want to move into the core? Where do I want to be? So we've seen a lot of that with our clients, and I think that's what's driving the activity that we've seen, certainly from Q2, Q3, and now into Q4. So average price. So the media has been talking about how prices are up. Average price is 13%. Again, average price is just like you're taking a basket of homes that sold within that month. So it's not like a great metric to look at specifically, but it's a metric. So you have to take them all and sort of see what kind of data you can surmise from this. But when you look at 416 condos, so when you look at Toronto specifically, what's happening with condos, prices are flat. Downtown's down a little bit, probably 2 or 3% relative to where we were last year. Other pockets outside of the downtown core are actually faring better. So when you're looking at North York condos, Scarborough, or even the West End, they tend to be doing better, and that's primarily because they are more affordable and you can get a little bit more space. So that's driving the market. But one thing I want to talk about is we had a really fascinating question from one of our viewers last month, and I want to address on this month's video. And they said to us, what do you think is going to happen with the freehold market if the move-up market, so if someone who has a condo, it can't sell their condo and is trying to move into a freehold, either a semi-detached or a detached property, is that going to play a role in softening of prices for the freehold market? And I thought it was fascinating. I just really want to talk about it today in the video. So one metric that we looked at is what is the ratio of the average price of condos relative to the ratio of the average price of a freehold. So when you look at that metric, the historical average, and I'm taking that over a 8-year period, is 2.25, meaning the average price of a freehold property in Toronto is 2.25 times the price of a condo apartment. So, when you look at that trend, there have certainly been periods that have been higher where that number has been closer to 3, which is at the end of 2016. And that's when we saw a dip of that ratio. There was a little bit of condensing, and the condo market sort of fueled that. And also, conversely, we saw some lulls where that number was closer to like 1.7, 1.8. So where are we this month? Where are we for month of October or November? We are 2.3. So we're actually really in line to where we are historically. So meaning it's 2.3 times the price of a average condo to buy a freehold. And so there's not a huge gap. So we don't feel that there is going to be a softening in the freehold market because of the lack of the trade up market. So like what typically happens in a life cycle is of a client looking to get into home ownership, they're going to buy a condo to start, maybe a 1-bedroom, 1+ den. They're going to move up. So sometimes they move up to a 2-bedroom or 2+ den condo town, or maybe a condo apartment, and then they do the upsize from that to a freehold, whether that's a detached or semi. So that's typically what happens with a typical life cycle of a home buyer. We find that if you're coming from a 1+ den or larger 1+ den or 2-bedroom condo, making that upsize move is not difficult whatsoever, because you're looking at average prices of that segment relative to the average price of the freehold. Yes, there's obviously a gap, but that gap is not significant. Where I think the challenge is for the smaller condos. So if you've got a 500 square foot or less condominium in downtown Toronto and you're trying to upsize, that's a tough market to sell in right now. The months of inventory, and I'm going to get into those numbers shortly, for a 500 square foot condo or smaller, it's like 8 months in the downtown core. So it's a tough sell. But if you've got any like a larger condominium that you're trying to sell to upsize, there's not that challenge. So that's one of the things that I thought would be super fascinating to talk about in this month's video. And we love your questions. So if you have any other questions that you want to talk about, you want us to address in next month's video, please shoot us an email or send us a DM on our social media profile, and we'd be happy to talk about it further. Okay, days on market. We're not surprised here that we're down to 19 days. Again, that's primarily driven by the freehold market. When you're looking at sales, all around GTA. Durham region is probably the hottest region in the GTA, followed then by Halton region. So those really are driving down the days on market numbers. So not really a surprise that we're that low. Okay, months of inventory. Everyone knows that this is one of my favorite stats to talk about when looking at the health of the real estate market. Look at this, 1.6 months of inventory in the Toronto Real Estate Board area. Like, unbelievable. Like, that is so incredibly low. Like, that is an ultra seller's market. Again, take that with a grain of salt, right? Because it depends on which market you're in. Are you in a 416 condo? Like, do you have a condo at Yonge and Sheppard? What's the months of inventory there versus what are the months of inventory in Pickering? Like, the numbers are different everywhere. So call us or send us a message. We're happy to tell you what your months of inventory are in your specific area and what it means for you. Like, the lower the months of inventory, the more tilted the market is towards being a seller. So, like, I would say a seller's market is anything characterized under like 2.4, 2.5. So now we're at 1.6, which is unbelievable. But when you're looking at, as I mentioned, downtown condos, so less than 500 square feet or over, 8 months of inventory, and the 500 to 600 square foot range is somewhere around 5. So, but if you look at, outside the downtown core, so if you eliminate the downtown core, what are the months of inventory for 416 condos? It's 3.4. So it's actually pretty balanced. Like, yeah, it's not a seller's market, but it's not a buyer's market. Like, we're not seeing drops in prices as a result, but certainly a positive indication of what's happening. So that's why we want to talk about what's happening micro versus macro, because it all depends on what's happening around you. So we hope you enjoyed this month's video. Again, any questions, comments, we'd love to hear from you. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, check our blog online. We've got some great posts there on a regular basis, and we're happy to hear from your comments, feedback, all that stuff. And maybe we'll even feature one of your questions next one. Thanks so much, and we'll see you again. Bye-bye.